Buongiorno, benvenuti. Sono Simone Pavesi, responsabile LAV Area Moda Animal Free. Dal 2019 LAV ha portato in Italia la campagna internazionale Salva Canguri, questo perché l'Italia purtroppo ha un ruolo nell'import di pelli ricavate dalla caccia commerciale ai canguri. Una pratica che, come sentiremo dalle testimonianze dei nostri ospiti oggi, è particolarmente cruenta, con un forte impatto sul benessere animale, sulla conservazione delle specie di canguri, ma anche con un impatto negativo nei confronti delle popolazioni aborigene australiane che nel canguro riconoscono un totem. Presso la Commissione Agricoltura della Camera è depositata la proposta di legge 961, promossa dalla LAV, fatta propria dall'onorevole Eleonora Evi come prima firmataria e altre deputate e deputati di diversi gruppi politici, e che, se approvata, introdurrebbe in Italia il divieto all'import e commercio di pelle ma anche di carne ottenuti dalla caccia commerciale ai canguri. Siamo dunque qui oggi per sollecitare la calendarizzazione e auspicabilmente l'approvazione di questo divieto. Ci saranno diversi interventi che man mano introdurrò, con la conclusione a cura dell'onorevole Evi. Gli interventi saranno prevalentemente in lingua inglese, con servizio di traduzione simultanea per le persone in sala, mentre la trasmissione sul canale della Camera andrà in lingua originale. Lascio ora la parola al primo ospite, che è Mick McIntyre, pluripremiato regista, documentarista australiano e autore del docufilm Kangaroo: A Love-Hate Story, di cui vedremo anche un estratto. Prego, Mick.
Yeah, thank you, Simone, and thank you to the MPs and LAV for hosting this special event. I come to you from Gadigal country, from the Eora Nation, or the place they call Sydney, Australia. And it's my honour to be part of this delegation that are touring Europe on behalf of Australia's kangaroos. And I'm particularly proud to be here with our friends, our two Indigenous friends from Australia, Pete from the Yuin Nation and Ricky from the Gumbai Guru Nation, who are going to speak later. My personal journey with the kangaroos started 12 years ago when me and my partner Kate produced the documentary Kangaroo: A Love-Hate Story, which you're going to see clips of after I finish speaking. What we uncovered making this film shocked me to my core. I witnessed what the commercial killing of kangaroos looks like. Horrific cruelty in the dead of night with no one watching. And this is an industry that is killing kangaroos for their meat and skins that are imported here to Italy and Europe. Our film was released in 2019 to critical acclaim. It won many awards and was considered for the Oscars for Best Documentary Feature. We're very proud of the success of the film and what it's done to raise awareness on this issue. And we were compelled to keep working on the kangaroo issue. So we set up the NGO Kangaroos Alive. And that is what's brought me here today. Working with LAV, we are now advocating to support this bill to ban kangaroo imports into Italy and then the rest of Europe. I've seen with my own eyes what this industry looks like. I cannot unsee what I saw, and you're going to see some of the stuff that we made in the film. We uncovered the truth of Australia's wildlife trade in kangaroos. And I really do stress how important this ban would be to the survival of kangaroos. We must stop this wildlife trade of kangaroos to ensure the survival of the kangaroos. And our Kangaroos Alive campaign manager, Dennis, will talk later a bit more detail about some of the other lobbying efforts we're doing. But for now, I'm going to introduce you to a 10-minute version of our film. And I just want to thank you again for allowing me to speak on behalf of our kangaroos. and we're going to watch this 10-minute version. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mick. Possiamo procedere col video?
They are the animal that is iconic to Australia. Our national airline. You know, it's got the kangaroo on the tail. They are a part of who we are as being Australians.
The kangaroos are wonderful, fuzzy, natural parts of our environment. They're delightful, they're Dot and the kangaroo, they're maternal, caring with their joeys, and they're also a pest that should be eliminated wholesale.
I was surprised to see what I saw. I don't think very many people understand at all just how bad it is. It's wrong. The way it's done, the way it's hidden, the double talk around it, the secrecy, the lies, the fact that no one listens. No one will even consider that these things happen. The authorities just say that you're lying. So I have to prove it. And I will.
My name's Max Dullamunmun Harrison. Yeah, I'm a human man from the far south coast of this country. The kangaroo to me is an important part of this nation that they call Australia. Kangaroos have been here for millions of years. This is their land. They are the first Australians.
Australia has often been said to ride on the sheep's back because so many sheep were introduced and they spread over the land as it was being colonised, and lots of people got very wealthy. And I suppose in those days people didn't really think about how much damage was being done as a result of the large numbers of sheep.
So straight after white settlement, it was very quick for kangaroos to be vilified as pests. And that attitude is pervasive right through to today, right through all communities and educated people, scientists, politicians, the local community.
I've been a professional roo shooter for roughly 20 years, or probably better. We just go to a farmer, we ask for permission to shoot on their land.
The origins of the modern kangaroo industry really date back to pest control. So farmers were saying there's too many of these kangaroos on the landscape, we need to suppress them. And rightly or wrongly, that was their perception, and government felt they need to do something. But on top of that, there was also an industry for kangaroo leather, and also for meat, for pet food consumption initially, but then for human consumption. And so the industry grew on the back of all of that.
The department regulates the harvest through setting sustainable quotas. The quotas are derived from population estimates, which are formed from annual aerial surveys. The surveys are conducted by helicopter, flying at 50 knots at an altitude of 60 metres. We have 2 trained observers in the aircraft conducting surveys.
So how do the various governments calculate their population estimates of kangaroos?
Basically, they count their transects
They dump all of that data into a mathematical algorithm and it spits out a number at the end. It doesn't take into account the severe impacts of drought, which happens frequently in Australia. It doesn't take into account farmers shooting them and illegal shooting, climate change or extreme weather like floods and bushfire. It doesn't allow for high juvenile mortality, and it ignores their slow rates of reproduction. With all these inconsistencies and gaps in their analysis, it makes it so that they can't even explain exactly how it works.
From an audience's perspective, I want them to understand how the regulatory body came up with this.
Yep, yeah, okay. The combined
The general perception is that kangaroos are farmed, harvested humanely, and they're rendered unconscious immediately that the bullet hits their head, but that's not the case at all.
The hunting of kangaroos is relentless, it's brutal, and it's barbaric.
The kangaroo can be shot at 7 o'clock at night, and then it's thrown onto the back of the truck. It's eviscerated in the bush, and the temperature could be 35 to 40 degrees Celsius. So he might not get the next kangaroo for another 50 kilometres. That goes on the back of the truck, say 8:30, and he finishes at, say, 5 in the morning. So we're looking at now about 8 hours, 9 hours. Dust blowing up in the air behind the wheels, dust that has absorbed the urine and feces of all species of animals. It's flying up and into the cavities of the carcass. And then he has to head to the chiller. And he has to be at the chiller no later than 2 hours after dawn.
The commercial kangaroo industry in Western Australia is closing down due to declining kangaroo numbers.
As an ecologist, we know that kangaroo populations are likely, very likely, to be decreasing. I would say that we have to apply the precautionary principle to this scenario and essentially stop killing kangaroos until we have better information.
They were shooting at the gate, and then I got up halfway down Sandstone Hill and they shooting directly at me. So it'd be really dangerous if you wanted to come in. Could ring the police and say you can't get in your front gate because you've just had a call from your partner who says that people are shooting. None of these heads have got brain shots at all. No way they died instantly.
I feel there's an element of dehumanising the industry, taking out that human feeling. Here we have an iconic animal, which is one of Australia's most precious animals, and we're advocating bashing its brains out against a rock. That can't be the right thing to do in the 21st century, in my mind.
Most Australians are not aware that the European Union is the largest importer of kangaroo products, being turned into leather and meat. I think it is vital that my counterparts in Europe, other MPs, really look into this issue very closely and consider what changes they can make in their laws to help save Australian kangaroos.
These are wild animals. They're not farmed. That means that if Americans and Europeans stop buying products made from kangaroos, then the killing of kangaroos would stop.
We need to live with this wonderful animal that they call the kangaroo. We need to understand their ways. We need to look and learn how to live on this land without destruction.
I've never given up hope. I've had bad days where I've taken pause, but I've always known that this was the mission. Someone is actually listening now. Someone actually sees what we've been doing as valuable. My dream is that kangaroos don't have to run from shooters ever again.
No rock will be left unturned. Not one slaughter operation, not one bludgeoned joey, not one retrieved decapitated head will be ignored in the inquiry's penetrating forensic analysis of an until now unaccountable but bloody, disgusting industry. It is the dirty, dark secret of the great southern land, second only in scope.
Ecco, con immagini veramente agghiaccianti, ed è veramente triste sapere che l'Italia è in qualche modo complice, ha un ruolo attivo in questa mattanza. Intervengono ora Peter Hewitt Gerja Yuin, docente di educazione aborigena presso l'Università di Wollongong del Nuovo Galles del Sud, e Ricky Buchanan Gumbangeir, insegnante di programmi di educazione linguistica e culturale nel settore dell'istruzione pubblica, e che sono stati incaricati dagli anziani dell'organizzazione culturale che riunisce la comunità aborigena australiana Back to Country a portare la loro istanza sino qui in Italia. Prego, vi lascio la parola.
That's helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Eleonora. Thank you, Simone, and the team from LAV for hosting us, and all the Italians present. Firstly, I'd just like to thank Mick and Kate and the team behind the film. We're here to give voice to Buru, kangaroo. That story speaks a lot. My name's Peter Hewitt. I'm a Geringer Yuin man from the south coast of New South Wales, which is 3 hours south of Sydney. My brother Ricky and I have been invited by our elders. One of those elders now lives in the Dreaming, Uncle Max. He's one of our cultural teachers. Our elders are very important because they teach us about our relationship with Minga. In my language, that means Mother Earth, and our relationship to it. We're not separate from nature. That story, I could feel the room shift. Based on that story, we can feel that story. We're not separate from nature. We all breathe the same air. We all drink the same water. So with that understanding, our elders have invited us to come and give voice to the kangaroo. We've been shared some of the stories. We dance the stories from kangaroo. In that film, you heard Uncle Max say, the kangaroo was here much longer than us. The kangaroo taught us the ways of the land, where to find water. The kangaroo is very important to our culture. So it's an honour and a privilege to sit here and be here, because we understand that that ancient creature needs to be defended, and we need to give voice to that respect. That film portrays disrespect, damage to that ancient animal. My brother and I are going to hop together in unison in that balance as we give voice to Buru.
So, thank you, Peter. My name is Ricky Buchanan. I'm a Gumbaynggirr man from a small town on the north coast of New South Wales. So, I am 5 hours north of Sydney. Like my brother Peter said, we are here on behalf of our elders who have given us a message to bring to everyone on this part of the world, in Europe. And we are here to give you some information to our connection to the kangaroo, or nungu in my language. And we would like you to understand our connection to the kangaroo and why it's important to us for you to support us in the fight for the rights for the kangaroo, and why it's important that kangaroo trade is finished and ceased. Kangaroo for us as Aboriginal people of Australia is a part of our family. He's our teacher as well. As Peter said, we learn from kangaroo about ourselves and our country. We wear kangaroo as a part of our family. So we identify as kangaroo. Some of the people in Australia are not allowed to harm kangaroo because it is their family. Kangaroo has its own name in every language in Australia. We have 360 different languages that are native to our country, and each one of them has their own way of speaking to and speaking of kangaroo. And that also creates the identity that we share with kangaroo. And as Peter said, we identify as being a part of nature and being a part of the environment around us.
So, I'm a quick learner. Look, I don't like to travel more than 10 minutes from home by car, but together we jumped on a plane for 20 hours to bring this voice, but also this important message stick. We've felt the ancient civilization as we've walked around Rome the last couple of days and could feel that respect. But we come from the oldest living culture in the world, 60,000 plus years. And this message stick holds that connection that we talk about. You can see in the symbology, and a message stick is about the authenticity that those teachings that our elders have given us have been carved into this message stick. The message stick is authenticating that voice and that important responsibility that our elders have asked to sit here and give voice to. You can see the umbilical cord that connects the kangaroo to the earth. and the responsibility that we have to care for it. This message stick represents that journey. It represents that message. So we thank you for listening. We respect everybody's ears, but it's also really important to continue the journey. This is one stop on a number of many. It's been nice to hear from Simone and the work that LAV have done about defending Buru. I can feel that in this room. Do you want to just mention that a little bit about ceremony?
We as Aboriginal people and we as members of Back to Country, which is an organisation to enable us to practice culture and reconnect with our country after the separation through colonisation. We as Aboriginal people hold ceremony for kangaroo for multiple reasons. One being that we would like to encourage the repopulation. So we hold ceremony for that. And we also hold ceremony in thanks for the kangaroo. So we thank our creators for kangaroo being a part of our environment. And we also give thanks to kangaroo every time we have the opportunity to use kangaroo for our own cultural purposes. So we hold the tradition of harvesting kangaroo in limited numbers based on how kangaroo presents itself in the environment. So if we see minimum numbers of kangaroo, we decide not to. We let the kangaroo reproduce. So we learn from kangaroo when it is the right time to harvest and when it is not. Kangaroo tells us and the country tells us. And so we give thanks to the kangaroo every time we harvest. We hold ceremony, we dance, we sing, we celebrate the life, and we give thanks to the life. And we appreciate that that is now going to give us life. And it's a really important thing for us to remember that we hold respect for that life. And this trade does not show any respect to the kangaroo or the environment that that kangaroo came from, or the people that hold ceremony on behalf of the kangaroo. And so we would like to influence your discussions to bring back the respect for this living, breathing creature.
So as brother articulated, respect. Our culture is grounded in respect. Respect for the earth and respect for the creatures that surround us. That story is not about respect. When I observe the story of kangaroo now, mainstream Australia does not have that respect for its animals. Australia has the highest extinction rate of its mammals. You heard it be referred to as a pest, as a plague. Part of changing that relationship is being able to remove money from that story. The trade of meat and kangaroo skin into Europe is a part of that story. By slowing down that trade, we can start to bring in that story of respect, so that we can observe that ancient creature, observe country and its relationship. It will tell us what it needs. It's about including the story of nature. Nature gives us what we need. We're all born from the mother, we return to the mother. The kangaroo has formed that great continent they now call Australia over millions of years. I thank you for listening. I appreciate the energy and the opportunity to sit here with my brother and hold this space with you all. Thank you. Grazie.
Grazie Peter e Ricky per le vostre parole, molto toccanti e significative. Lascio ora intervenire l'onorevole Mark Pearson, già membro del Parlamento del Nuovo Galles del Sud, per condividere un rapido aggiornamento rispetto all'attuale contesto politico nel Nuovo Galles del Sud, in generale in Australia, sulla regolamentazione della caccia commerciale ai canguri. Prego.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate coming together today and very much appreciate and respect the Honourable Member Eleonora Evi from putting forth the motion. And Australia is turning to Europe, is turning to you to help us, because the government of Australia is failing this animal. The governments of Australia have turned their back on this animal. They have become captured by a brutal, cruel, aggressive industry, which my brother Peter referred to as an industry. Peter and Ricky refer to an industry which has no respect, no consideration for the beauty, sentience, and majesty of this ancient Australian animal. As a Member of Parliament, I caused an inquiry, being on the Environment Committee as Deputy Chair. I caused an inquiry which was supported by all sides of government, the most Conservative, the Labor Party, the Greens and Independents. The inquiry looked at the kangaroo industry. The report finally resulted in that actually no evidence, no crucial substantiated evidence came before the inquiry from the industry or the government that could reassure the government and the community includes Indigenous people, could not reassure us that these animals were not killed in extremely inhumane ways, that the methodology deployed to count the numbers to determine the quota or the number of animals that were permitted to be shot by shooters and farmers. And we need to take into account the reason they need to have this permit is because the kangaroo, like all wild animals in Australia, is a protected wild treasure. And if you want to harm it as a shooter, as a farmer, you have to get a special licence to do that. So that means the government is cognizant all the time as it issues licences that harm these animals. Now, the extraordinary thing is, as apart from the ongoing cries and concerns from the Indigenous people of Australia, one person picked up the phone and rang me 15 years ago. And that man was a kangaroo shooter. And he was employed by a Russian company, which was the largest importer of kangaroo products at the time, 70%. And he told me this industry was totally out of control, could not possibly be regulated even with the best will in the world, and was brutal to an extreme which even a shooter found unacceptable. So we gathered evidence with the shooter, and we took that evidence in 2008 to here. I met with Neil Parish, Andrea Gavanelli, and other people in this parliament of this land, and we also went to Russia. Within 18 months, Russia banned the imports of kangaroo products based on hygiene concerns, welfare, sustainability, and the embarrassing realisation that Russia was importing an animal which was an icon of Australia. It's on our coat of arms. So we turn to Europe. If you implement a ban and prohibit the imports of kangaroo products, you will save this animal, those baby joeys, 400,000 plus every year, from suffering such a disgusting, appalling treatment, which must happen as soon as a shooter shoots a female kangaroo, a doe. The shooter is also killing 75% of the time 2 young animals, one in the pouch and one at foot. So the industry is unconscionable. It cannot be argued that welfare is any credible part of its function. So I, as a former Member of Parliament, because I cannot convince the governments of Australia, and I can't convince the industry, and nor can anybody else, we are here. We are turning to you to help us save this beautiful animal. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Siamo tutti certi che collaborando insieme riusciremo a raggiungere questo importante traguardo di civiltà. Interviene ora Dennis Vink, campaign manager dell'ONG australiana Kangaroos Alive, sullo stato di conservazione delle specie di canguri. Per questo punto era previsto l'intervento del dottor Dror Ben-Hamid, zoologo israeliano, tra i massimi esperti in macropodidi della famiglia che riunisce le varie specie di canguri, ma in quanto vive e lavora da Tel Aviv per il contesto attuale non ha potuto raggiungerci, quindi lascio la parola a Dennis. Prego.
Grazie Simone. And thank you to Ms. Eleonora Evi for putting forth the motion. Hi everybody, thanks for being here. Today I would like to present to all of you for the very first time a global declaration of the kangaroo welfare crisis. This declaration represents the unified voice of over 80 of the world's leading animal welfare and wildlife organizations, philosophers, biologists, sanctuaries, and other experts in this field, to unequivocally declare that the commercial kangaroo industry is causing levels of animal cruelty and suffering that are entirely unacceptable and needs to be ceased immediately. This joint position is based on the latest available science, evidence, and insights. The Australian government and the commercial kangaroo industry continue to claim to citizens, consumers, and foreign states that import these kangaroo products, such as Italy, that this wildlife trade is supposedly humane because they have a code of practice. However, the recent parliamentary inquiry that Mark referred to in Australia has revealed and confirmed that there is zero monitoring at the point of kill, and therefore effectively no monitoring of compliance with this code of practice. And in the meantime, there is mounting evidence of non-compliance. Several independent studies have shown that up to 40% of commercially killed kangaroos are misshot, meaning that they are shot in the jaw, the ears, the eyes, the neck, or the body, leading to a slow and horrifically painful death. Kangaroos that are not shot in the brain are usually not accepted by the industry, but since commercial shooters will disembowel and decapitate kangaroos in the field, they can simply cut the neck low enough, and if they are body shot, just leave the body in the field to avoid ever being detected. Importantly, as has been mentioned before, 1 out of 3 commercially killed kangaroos is an adult female who will usually have a dependent young at any time of the year. The Australian government recommends that shooters pull the joeys out of their mother's pouch, and if they are small enough, decapitate them, but otherwise grab them by their hind legs and bash them to death by swinging them against the truck or a rock. Experts have repeatedly raised their grave concerns that this causes extreme fear and suffering in their final moments of life and is highly unlikely to be achieved humanely by a shooter handling a struggling joey without any required training and again, without any supervision. Multiple government reports and recent evidence, however, have shown that in reality, shooters hardly ever even make the effort to find and kill the orphan joey, whose mother they have just shot, but instead just leave them to die slowly and alone of starvation, dehydration, exposure to the heat, or predation, leading to unacceptable, prolonged suffering of joeys. It is estimated that 400,000 healthy wild joeys suffer this fate every year as collateral deaths to this brutal industry. We're talking about the world's largest slaughter of land-based wildlife, and other infamous and comparable wildlife slaughters, such as the Canadian seal slaughter or the Japanese whale and dolphin slaughters, pale in comparison in terms of numbers. There is no question in the minds of all the experts and organizations that have signed this declaration, as well as the vast majority of Australian and Italian citizens, according to representative new public surveys, that this wildlife trade is indeed an animal welfare crisis and needs to be seized immediately. Finally, I would also like to touch on the topic of conservation, because this cruelty is continuously justified by the false narrative that kangaroos are overabundant and that the commercial slaughter is sustainable, but this could not be further from the truth. The parliamentary inquiry revealed that the methods that are used to estimate kangaroo populations are highly unreliable and inaccurate and will often lead to population estimates that are biologically impossible. For example, kangaroos are slow reproducing species, and the maximum growth rate of kangaroo populations is about 15% in good years, but the Australian government will sometimes claim growth rates as high as 500%. Biologically impossible. That means that nobody knows exactly how many kangaroos are left. Not us, not the Australian government, and not the industry. But we are seeing that the commercially targeted species are rapidly becoming regionally extinct or critically endangered. In addition, because commercial shooters are paid per kilo, they will continuously target the largest, strongest, healthiest, dominant males and adult females, which not only continuously disrupts their complex social structures, but also puts an unnatural selection pressure on these populations, their vitality and their ability to recover after drought or fires, which are only going to get worse with climate change. We cannot keep taking the risk of losing these kangaroo species just for the sake of making profit from selling luxury goods overseas. And that is why we call on Italy to ban the imports of kangaroo products in order to stop driving this wildlife trade, which is causing unacceptable cruelty and ecological threat to kangaroo populations in Australia. Thank you.
Grazie Dennis. Intervengo io per fare una sintesi per quanto possibile di quello che è il contesto italiano, il ruolo dell'Italia. Se da una parte l'Italia non è un mercato, per fortuna almeno questo, significativo di riferimento per quanto riguarda il commercio di carne di canguro, lo è invece come per quanto riguarda l'import di pelli di canguro. Secondo l'Australian Bureau of Statistics, 381 tonnellate di pelli di canguro sono entrate in Italia con destinazione alle concerie italiane tra il 2019 e settembre del 2022, per un valore complessivo di 7,8 milioni di euro. Ciò purtroppo fa dell'Italia il primo importatore in Unione Europea di pelli di canguro, quinto al mondo insieme a Vietnam, dopo Turchia, Pakistan, India e Indonesia. Numeri importanti, se però li rapportiamo a quello che è il volume complessivo dell'industria conciaria italiana, con 100 milioni di metri quadri di pelli finite nel solo 2023, le pelli di canguro rappresentano una minima quota del settore. Dunque, anche in considerazione di questo dato industriale, l'Italia può facilmente fare a meno di essere complice di una mattanza di animali selvatici che, per livelli di crudeltà e numero di animali uccisi, non ha eguali al mondo. Perché si usa la pelle di canguro? Perché secondo l'industria risulta essere elastica, resistente, leggera e per tale ragione viene impiegata in particolare nel settore sportivo per la produzione di scarpini da calcio e per motociclisti. Nel settore del lusso, aziende con le quali abbiamo potuto confrontarci, come abitualmente usa fare l'hub rispetto alle aziende, una volta compresa la criticità, l'insostenibilità di questa filiera, hanno subito dismesso le produzioni in pelle di canguro negli anni recenti, da Prada, Versace, Ferragamo, Gucci. Nel settore del calcio l'italiana Diadora è stata l'apripista in questo settore, seguita poi dai maggiori player del settore delle scarpe da calcio a livello globale, che sono Puma e Nike, che hanno dismesso le produzioni in pelle di canguro orientandosi verso materiali alternativi di nuova generazione, non di origine animale, quindi non hanno sostituito la pelle di canguro con quella di qualche altro animale. Purtroppo ci sono aziende che, sempre italiane, come l'italiana Lotto, che forse ancora consapevoli ma indifferenti di quella che è la realtà dell'industria del canguro, continuano a usare pelle di canguro senza chiamarla più per quello che è, ma preferiscono usare la dicitura key leather, che in termini di marketing fosse più, come dire, appetibile per il consumatore anziché vedere scritto su un prodotto pelle di canguro. Nel settore del motociclismo ci sono le italiane Dainese e Alpinestar, da noi più volte sollecitate, che sembrano non essere ancora interessate ad affrontare questo problema, che è un problema di responsabilità sociale e di sviluppo sostenibile. Noi nel mentre abbiamo sentito l'opinione dei consumatori e in un sondaggio commissionato in diversi paesi europei, tra cui ovviamente anche l'Italia, si rileva che il 78% dei consumatori italiani è favorevole ad un divieto all'import di pelli e carne anche derivati dalla caccia commerciale ai canguri. Sul sito Lab sono disponibili poi infografiche che possono meglio spiegare i risultati di questa rilevazione che abbiamo condotto in Italia e in altri paesi europei. In questi giorni stiamo raccogliendo firme su una petizione a livello nazionale a supporto della proposta di legge 961, perché attualmente non è ancora stata calendarizzata nei lavori della Commissione Agricoltura. In meno di 24 ore abbiamo raggiunto qualcosa come 10.000 firme, a testimonianza ulteriore del fatto che gli italiani sono favorevoli a questo divieto. In passato, sono trascorsi quasi 20 anni, l'Italia è stato paese guida in Europa, adottando per prima il divieto all'import di pelli di foca, di pellicce di foca, divieto poi esteso a tutta l'Unione Europea. Con la caccia alle foche, la caccia commerciale ai canguri condivide l'estrema crudeltà, la totale mancanza di controlli sul benessere animale, la totale insostenibilità in termini di conservazione delle specie. La caccia commerciale ai canguri si differenzia dalla caccia alle foche per i numeri. Quando ancora il mercato europeo era aperto alle pellicce di foca, in Canada si uccidevano qualcosa come 300.000 foche. In Australia oggi, ogni anno, si uccidono milioni di canguri per questa industria. Quindi è giunto il momento di avviare l'iter legislativo e approvare la proposta di legge 961. Cedo ora per la chiusura di questa conferenza stampa la parola all'onorevole Evi, ma intanto saluto anche l'onorevole Patrizia Prestipino che ci ha raggiunto, membro della Commissione Politiche Europee, quindi ulteriormente importante la sua presenza qui oggi. La proposta di legge 961 per divieto di import e commercio di prodotti derivati dal canguro appunto è stata sottoscritta come prima firmataria dall'onorevole Evi e da altri deputati e deputati come l'onorevole Michela Vittoria Brambilla, Ilario Cavo di Noi Moderati, Susanna Cherchi di Movimento 5 Stelle, Beatriz Colombo e Mauro Malaguti, Fratelli d'Italia, Rita Dalla Chiesa, Gloria Saccani-Iotti di Forza Italia, Francesco Gallo, Gruppo Misto e Simona Loizzo della Lega. Quindi in maniera trasversale si sono colte le sensibilità e anche la responsabilità dei parlamentari che si sono fatti carico di questa istanza. Prego, Eleonora.
Grazie davvero di cuore, dal profondo del cuore per queste testimonianze, per far aprire gli occhi su questo tema. Un grazie in particolare alla LAV che da sempre su questo fronte è impegnata a scuotere le coscienze e la politica. La prima considerazione che mi viene da fare è cosa riesce a fare l'essere umano su questa terra? A che punto di bassezza infinita siamo arrivati nell'interfacciarci e nel relazionarci con gli altri esseri viventi? Penso agli animali negli allevamenti, ma gli animali selvatici stanno subendo e stanno vivendo una crisi senza precedenti, e l'esempio del canguro dovrebbe veramente far saltare tutti quanti sulla sedia per quanto è grave, per quanto è disumano, per quanto è indicibile e crudele la modalità con cui vengono uccisi milioni di animali ogni anno. E noi siamo complici, noi italiani, la nostra industria, il nostro paese è in una misura importante complice e responsabile di questa mattanza. E questa cosa non può essere tollerata. Se è vero, come è vero che abbiamo cambiato la nostra Costituzione per inserire proprio la tutela dell'ambiente e degli animali. E gli animali non possiamo pensare soltanto a quelli che sono presenti nel nostro territorio, è evidente, ma anche quelli che vengono uccisi per colpa dei nostri consumi e per colpa della nostra bulimia di acquisto di prodotti, perché c'è anche tutto un tema legato al iperconsumo di moltissimi prodotti, sia per quanto riguarda l'alimentazione che per quanto riguarda in particolare l'abbigliamento, in questo caso legato appunto in particolare all'importazione di pelle di canguro. E chi dice nel nostro paese che questa filiera è sostenibile ed è tracciata, mente ormai sapendo di mentire, e abbiamo ormai le evidenze anche grazie al lavoro importantissimo svolto dalla commissione d'inchiesta che ha fatto luce su questa pratica così crudele, così barbara. Il Code of Practice for Humane Shooting, già questa parola chiaramente è un ossimoro in termini, è una foglia di fico, è un modo per fingere che le cose siano sostenibili e siano digeribili, ma così non è. Così non è, e basta leggerlo per capire quanto la realtà sia completamente diversa e come non si possa minimamente garantire nessuna di quelle pratiche messe nero su bianco in quel codice di procedura. È impraticabile ed è una sorta di presa in giro, e quindi non si può fare affidamento a questo tipo di norme. Ma cambiare è possibile, ed è stato detto, io lo voglio ricordare, lo voglio sottolineare e ribadire: cambiare è possibile. In Italia molte aziende hanno già deciso di dismettere queste importazioni, l'uso di questi prodotti, l'uso di pelli derivati dal canguro. Bisogna fare di più, ed è con il divieto che questa PDL, con questa proposta di legge, si propone di arrivare e di ottenere, che si può proseguire questo percorso già avviato, e che va però sostenuto e va guidato, e la politica deve farsi sentire. Io voglio ringraziare veramente di cuore i rappresentanti della comunità aborigena Yuin e tutti gli intervenuti, anche perché ci ricordano davvero come, e le parole sono state molto toccanti e molto profonde, la nostra interconnessione con la natura e con gli altri esseri viventi, gli altri esseri senzienti, è un qualche cosa che va protetto, va difeso e va forse riscoperto, anzi sicuramente, senza forse, sicuramente riscoperto, soprattutto nel mondo in cui viviamo oggi. Quindi non ci sono più scuse per temporeggiare. Come è stato detto, l'Italia già in passato ha avanzato una proposta di divieto e poi l'Unione Europea ha seguito. È il caso di proseguire ancora con questo percorso con coraggio. Io dico solo questo: mi auguravo che questa proposta di legge potesse essere incardinata nella commissione in cui sedevo prima, attività produttive, e così non è stata. Oggi è assegnata alla Commissione Agricoltura e dormiente ancora nei cassetti. Io credo che dopo questa conferenza stampa, che peraltro è registrata, è online e può essere rivista, può essere diffusa e può essere, nonostante appunto purtroppo non molti colleghi hanno potuto partecipare per via dei lavori di aula e le votazioni in corso, e ringrazio però davvero tantissimo la collega Patrizia Prestipino per essere qui insieme a noi. Il lavoro che va fatto adesso è appunto un lavoro di pressione sui membri della Commissione Agricoltura. Io per prima, a partire dal nostro gruppo politico, faremo questo, e mi auspico di poter vedere presto la calendarizzazione di questa proposta di legge in Commissione Agricoltura e arrivare ad un divieto definitivo nel nostro Paese e poi in futuro anche a livello europeo. Grazie.
Grazie Eleonora, possiamo concludere la nostra conferenza stampa, salvo eventuali domande, eventualmente siamo a disposizione. Ci spostiamo nella sala a fianco, perfetto, grazie. Grazie a tutti.